And it's time for more Type Over 40. Yeah, I'm Dan Hadley. You might know me as the host of the Type 40 podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network. And yeah, we've been putting out these videos now and again, just on not day-to-day Doctor Who life, but certainly week-to-week Doctor Who life. And as things roll along, people have been getting in touch with us in return. So I'm here to answer some of these messages, and so Simon.
Hello, nice to be back with you, Dan.
Yeah, and we didn't consult on this before, did we? But we're actually wearing the team colours here.
Yeah, we do appear to be wearing team colours. I mean, I did suggest maybe I ought to go and change. We seem to have identity. We're a bit like Pinky and Perky today, I guess, aren't we? But there we go. Yeah. We need you take us as you find us.
Team numbers and probably the Fan Podcast Network on there or something. Yeah, because just like we said, we always say on every podcast, we say, get in touch with us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and all these other places, don't we? We talk about our Facebook groups and whatnot. And yeah, things are starting to trickle in. People are sending in some nice messages. And a big message came in just a few days ago based on a news story, Simon, connected with one particular Doctor Who actor. It's the Doctor Who actor, I think we all, up until recently, he's been a bit of an enigma, isn't he? Christopher Eccleston.
I was going to say, I'm assuming you're talking about Christopher Eccleston then, okay.
Because you could count on the fingers of one hand, can't you? Until recently, how often he would acknowledge Doctor Who, let alone speak at length about it. And now he doesn't seem to stop.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because yes, you're right. I mean, yes, up until recently, he's been very, very tight-lipped on anything to do with Doctor Who at all, and very elusive and almost quite cold. But yes, you are also right in that. Yeah, he's now talking a lot more about stuff. But it's odd because he still talks very cryptically. For every answer that he gives, he throws up a dozen questions that are left in my mind. He never, I still don't actually feel we've really got much closer to understanding the real Christopher Eccleston and what exactly was going on behind the scenes at Doctor Who, for all that he says.
He's a naturally, for somebody who is, I mean, I don't know if you knew this, but Christopher Eccleston comes from Salford and he's working class. He doesn't like to talk about it, but despite those things, he is, for all the fact that he is this everyday man, he's a family man, he's got 2 small children, he is very enigmatic and he's got this aura about him, isn't he?
It's funny because on the one hand, I think of him as a very unactorly actor. You're quite right. He's very down to earth and all the rest of it. On the other hand, ironically, he almost seems the most actorly of actor in that he takes being an actor very, very seriously. His art is everything. And so I just think Christopher Eccleston is something of a dichotomy and an enigma. And in that respect, he was perfect for the Doctor, because that to me is exactly that mercurial, undefinable, difficult to pin down quality is what you need about a Doctor, which is why certain actors who might or might not recently be playing the role just don't quite work the same for me.
Yeah, it is this natural. I think at first when he was originally cast, without going down this road too much, maybe because we don't know him personally, and the fact that Russell T Davies had worked with him before, he could obviously see this contrast and knew what he'd be able to bring through from the actor that we as viewers hadn't seen before. I've just recently rewatched Cracker, for example, and I watched Shallow Grave quite a lot, and they are Eccleston playing on similar strengths, I would say, whereas with Doctor Who, he brings in all these other things. But whenever I hear that he's speaking about it on the radio, even for a couple of minutes, he spoke about it to Joe Wiley about 2.5 years ago, and it was, boom, the ears pricked right up, got to know, and you look at every single word. But when was it? About 2 weeks ago, he appeared at the Rose City Comic Con for a full 40 minutes on his first ever actual panel. And somebody was good enough, if you're watching this and it was you, somebody was good enough to take that video and load it onto YouTube for us all to watch and hear. And I still haven't got around to listening to all of it, but I gather you have, Simon.
Yeah, I've watched the whole video right the way through, and it's odd because I think I never seriously expected to see Christopher Eccleston appear for 40 odd minutes on a convention
No.
panel. It's just not. We've become used to these very short, very cryptic, very carefully controlled on his part comments that appear occasionally in a Radio Times interview or whatever it might be. So to suddenly get 40 odd minutes of very unscripted, unscheduled, off the cuff Christopher Eccleston was really quite, well, remarkable. We've become very used over recent years to endlessly ubiquitous interviews with people like David Tennant, Matt Smith, Jodie Whittaker. And so Christopher Eccleston remains that very enigmatic character that you're right, your ears prick up when you hear he's talking, simply because unlike the other recent doctors, we don't know a lot about him. And certainly, probably in that 40 odd minutes at this recent appearance, we probably know more about Christopher Eccleston than we've ever found out since 2005. And it's a really interesting, very watchable interview, because if nothing else, he comes across as incredibly likable, which I almost sound surprised in that respect. And that's because I think, because he has come across as this quite distant person.
And he did that.
To find him as
everything he could as well to build up that aura around himself, didn't he? That mystique, and to put that, not necessarily a barrier between us and him. I thought it was certainly the press and him and the BBC, definitely.
And also maybe not a barrier, but a distance. Certainly, he was responsible for putting that distance, and I don't begrudge that at all. I think in many ways that was the right thing to do. Tom Baker, as much as Tom Baker talks, he's still very, very enigmatic and mercurial, and you never really feel that you actually get to know the real Tom Baker. So I think it's absolutely the right approach to take. But it's remarkable to suddenly see all those barriers come crashing down at this comic appearance. And as I say, he just comes across as a remarkably warm, likable person who has no problems whatsoever talking about anything to do with his career, let alone Doctor Who. But I can't help thinking, the whole appearance is built around questions from the audience. And I can't help thinking that an edict went out prior to the appearance that nobody was allowed to directly ask the question, why did you leave Doctor Who? Because I honestly think somebody would have asked that question given the opportunity.
That clear, concise, no quibble question that would demand, there's no way you could duck giving a likewise clear, concise and no quibble answer.
That's right, and so I think that people, I don't know, maybe I'm completely wrong, but I'm pretty certain somebody would have asked the direct question and put him in an awkward position. Whereas it's very obviously the departure is very, very heavily alluded to and in fact covered in some depth, but again without actually revealing any real facts that you can get to grips with at all, other than what we've already kind of ascertained, which is that clearly he and Russell T Davies and ultimately Julie Gardner had a massive fallout, and we still don't know the full details of that fallout, why they had it, who brought it about, what the ultimate problem was. We still don't know that. We just know that there is a major problem there and they had a major fallout.
As much as I think we'd all kind of like to know, even the best of us, we'd like to know. We might have to wait a little while for that. We're going to pop the link to that in the show notes of this video, just in case you haven't caught it yet. And yeah, I'll be watching it myself in the next couple of days, find out a bit more myself. But the novelty of just spending 30 to 40 minutes in the company of Christopher Eccleston is surely be enough for me. Certainly, I would imagine it'd be for a lot of people. And yeah, after that appearance at the Rose City Comic Con, he was then scheduled to appear at the Edmonton Expo, which is in Canada. So I'm led to believe quite a big event. And obviously there's a great deal of excitement there, particularly after this huge appearance at Rose City, where he'd been so human with people and so open. So people were looking forward to that second appearance. But I think it was less than 48 hours before Chris Eccleston had to cancel that for undisclosed family reasons, and he even made a video directly to camera, which I think he put up through Instagram, not ducking it. No, there was no statement from his agent, just saying, look, I'm really sorry, I can't be there and whatever. with and you could see. I mean, he's a very good actor, but he's not that good an actor. It was absolutely genuine. He really, really wants to be there, and so people responded in a really warm and just as open way. But within a week of that, we had this fresh confirmation that he was going to be appearing at a huge convention, and arguably even bigger convention after all. So take a look at this. This is the Gallifrey One convention, which, as good God, this is the biggest Doctor Who convention in the world. I would say. I've never been. Have you, Simon?
No, I'd love to go. Wouldn't we all love to go? One of these days, I've still promised myself that one of these days I'll go to Gallifrey One, but the expense and all the rest of it has precluded it so far. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, and here he is, confirmed as the new headline guest at Gallifrey One, the 31st Gallifrey One, at the Marriott Los Angeles Airport Hotel on the 14th to the 16th of February 2020. And the blurb says, "Thanks for visiting. Gallifrey One is the world's largest and longest-running annual Doctor Who fan convention, a tradition in North American Doctor Who fandom since 1990. Remember 1990, Simon?
No, I'm afraid not. It's too long ago now.
The year I met you. Taking place every February, over President's Day weekend at the Marriott Los Angeles Airport Hotel. Our next annual convention, the 31 Flavors of Gallifrey One, whatever that means. I think it's an ice cream theme and novel. Will take place February 14th to the 16th, 2020. Tickets for our 2020 convention are still available at the cost of $110 for adults, $60 for teens, that's age 12 to 16, and $30 for children aged 3 to 11. Children under 3 are always free. I always think it's lovely when people do that. You can purchase tickets via our registration page, which is also there to be clicked. And so as you can imagine, I mean, as consolations go, that's a good one. That's a hell of a one for Chris Eccleston to pull out.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, it's strange because you can't help thinking that logically his entrance onto the fan circuit might have been through Gallifrey One to begin with, because you'd think he might just go out all guns blazing and land with a bang at the biggest convention in the world for Doctor Who fans, rather than this very small comic convention that he's recently done. But I can't help thinking that it feels a little bit like he's maybe dipping his toe in the water with that previous appearance a couple of weeks ago, just to test the water and just see quite how the crowd respond to him, but B, for him almost as a dress rehearsal to get into the mentality of answering questions about Doctor Who, which he's never really done before, rather than in a very, very controlled environment. So it makes absolute sense that now he's kind of upping the game and going to Gallifrey One, but you can't help thinking at some point somebody is going to ask him very directly the question, why did you leave Doctor Who? And you wonder, now that he's very much appearing on the fan circuit, you wonder how long he can actually dodge the truth for before
and
he finally has to say, okay.
It? That's the most important thing.
That's the problem, of course. Once the cat's out of the bag, the cat's very firmly out of the bag. But as I say, he makes no bones over the fact that he and Russell have completely fallen out, that the relationship has clearly broken down 100%. So you can't help thinking there's nothing really to lose at this stage now. Yeah, so it really does feel... it's very, very sad, because they were best mates. But you can't help thinking now, the time is coming really now where, come on, let's just cut through the rubbish now and let's find out what actually happened that day.
I suppose, seeing as both gentlemen have said very flattering things about one another in the last 12 months, then we'll see a healing of that relationship and bygones becoming bygones, maybe. I mean, you could be really cynical about this. Chris Eccleston's got a book out at the moment. He's everywhere.
Funny that. What a coincidence.
Yeah. So there is that. But hey, we're getting something we've always wanted, and it is his life, and it is literally his life on paper. He's putting out for us. Nobody's under any obligation, are they, to do any of that? And if you got a memento of it in a hardback book, particularly if he signs it, I mean, he's got a great signature as well. Not all the actors have they? So it's not a nice thing to have, particularly after such a wait. But we've got to go from that. It leads nicely on to some of the first big bit of feedback we've had lately, which has come to me via a Facebook message. And the person who contacted me has asked for their identity to remain anonymous, which I know that sounds a little serious for talking about Doctor Who, but you know, as you'll see in a moment, I think you'll understand a little bit as to why, because it's specifically about the Gallifrey 1 convention. And in the wake of this news about Christopher Eccleston, because that's obviously, that convention is 4 to 5 months away, and Chris has been confirmed as this sort of headline guest. And you would think those big slots would have already been taken by now, given that this convention they announced these conventions, the Gallifrey 1, immediately after the last one has taken place, traditionally. And yet here we are 4 or 5 months early. I mean, yeah, if anybody's worth moving the roster around for, it's a Doctor, and the Doctor that people thought they'd never get to hear. But even so yeah, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you this message, Simon. You can see what you think. And yeah, here it is. It says, "Hi Dan, I was at February's Galley 1 convention. I've been to them all since I live in Southern California, and for the last 3 to 4 years, the con has sold out quite quickly, ranging from 10 minutes after tickets went on sale. 10 minutes, that's extraordinary, isn't it? 3 years ago to 2 days to a week. But this year absolutely bucks the trend for tickets to still be available nearly 6 months after going on sale. At February's con, obviously that would have been the February 2019 con, the atmosphere was very low key the entire weekend. And there was no buzz about the new Doctor. Odd, considering the high-profile first female Doctor had just finished her supposedly successful first season. My theory: no one wanted to admit what they honestly thought about Series 11, either to be politically correct or avoid arguments, and so said nothing at all. The fact that the 2020 con hasn't sold out attests to the complete failure of Series 11 to renew interest in the show, actually crippling it instead. That did surprise me. I mean, I'd heard reports about Gallifrey 1 over the years. Now, I suppose you've seen numerous sets of pictures from this convention too, Simon, where it is swarming with people, and the immediacy of these tickets selling out. I mean, were you aware of this? That the thing was that as soon as they went on sale, they were gone.
No, I must admit, I didn't realise that they sold out quite as quickly as that. I mean, from what is being described there, it's obviously kind of akin to, a Take That Pop concert or whatever, where tickets sell out in minutes. So that surprises me. In a way, it then surprises me as to why they haven't sold out for 2020, but then it doesn't surprise me simply because, I don't know how much longer we can. You and I have spoken very honestly about this and openly about this, Dan, but still there is an enormous tendency and drive to avoid the elephant in the room, which is that, yes, Jodie Whittaker, the Jodie Whittaker era, let's just say that, is not firing people up. And gosh, we have spoken at length about this, and it's still something that deeply concerns me, and it deeply concerns me that if Gallifrey 1 is not selling out within minutes as it was previously, that suggests it's killing. The franchise is on the decline. There's no two ways about it. And what really surprises me actually is that I kind of think if anybody would have embraced Jodie Whittaker's era, it would have been Americans more so than British people. I don't know why. I just get that feeling that somehow the series has a more akin to an American mentality of what television is rather than a British mentality of what television is.
Carl Wagner feels a similar way. He believes it's more popular there than it is here in the UK where we are.
Well, I guess maybe part of that is simply because British people are going to be, for better or worse, more resistant to change to a female Doctor, simply because we've had the series from day one in 1963 chronologically through the years, and we've followed it in the correct order that it's meant to be. Whereas Americans, of course, came into it piecemeal, each different region of the states showing a different doctor at a different time, all out of order. So they've never kind of had that sort of more pure view that the British people have. They've been more willing and able to leap around in their imagination as to who is the doctor at any one time, more so than the British people. So I can see why that they're able to almost deal with it better than British people. So as I say, if Gallifrey 1 is not selling, and I'm guessing that the majority of people that go to Gallifrey 1 are Americans, purely because of financial reasons, if nothing else, then that suggests to me it's not working for the Americans either. And I find that even more worrying than the fact it's not working for British people.
I think what's happening in America is that it's being compounded by the fact that it's off screen for so long. And they can go on about how, and comparing it to Game of Thrones and various other things, all they like. But when you're absent for a year and a half, time after time after time, any momentum that you build up just very naturally falls away. And when I think about the merchandising and the sales of Doctor Who magazine falling, subscribers falling, and this person describes the very low key, no buzz. And when I look back to San Diego Comic Con, there was lots of reports there how there was people coming back and saying, I didn't see anybody cosplaying Doctor Who, and obviously there was no Doctor Who panel there at all. I think it all builds up to form a very clear picture to me. And I think us as fans, I think this is the game's up. This is, I'm not saying that you don't have to, if you like it as things are, then that's fine. If you like you may even like the fact that there's no merchandise around. You may even like that it's, whatever. You may even like the slightly more low-key feel. I don't know. Whatever reason you've got for preferring it, fair play to you. But this is not conventionally a desirable situation where the franchise can be harmed, where the buzz drops. I mean, particularly it's a Doctor Who convention. It's one thing at Comic Con where there's lots of different things pulling people in different directions, and it's all very now. It's all that word that I know some people really hate the word zeitgeist, but it's now. It's supposed to be of the moment, and there's something ephemeral about it. But this is dedicated, concentrated 3-4 days of Doctor Who we're talking about here. And yeah, I mean, to me, it points to that unavoidable truth that we've been saying time and time again, and that just gets dismissed for whatever reason. There are people just like you and I. This person obviously has been there. They've been there at every single event over 30 years, and they've never known it to be like this. And back in the day, Simon, before the internet, when we were all tucked away, on our own, fans, weren't we? Very seldom getting together to compare notes. And you could spin a yarn, you could control the narrative, you could say, "Oh, that's not how it is. People love this. People do." But we're talking to one another now. We're live streaming from events. We can see it's like the Emperor's New Clothes kind of situation.
I think in many ways, the difficulty that has arisen really over recent years is that there is a lot of resistance to anybody saying that they don't like the Jodie Whittaker era. And to be honest, that's been happening really since the Stephen Moffat, Matt Smith era, where that didn't work for me. I have to be honest. I'm honest about that. I think really there are two things going on here. There must be out there people who genuinely are loving everything that is coming out of the Jodie Whittaker era. There must be people that absolutely genuinely love it, and fair dues to them. Give my thumbs up to them. I'm really glad you're enjoying it. I think there is also a large faction of people who are reacting against people like you and I criticising the era simply because they just don't, they see that as negative. They don't want the programme that they love to be knocked. And I've just never come from that place. I don't have a problem.
I've been in that situation. I understand that completely. And to be, if I'll go hold my hands up. Up until a very few short years ago, I was kind of like that. Probably up until midway through the Stephen Moffat era, I was very much like that. Where it's this, I would defend the show pretty much to the last, and because it was, yeah, I'm a human being. It was doing a lot of the things that I enjoy in the way that I liked, and it hadn't compromised my love of the show, my connection to the character. So if that makes me, I don't think that does make me a hypocrite at all. I think that I think it goes to, I can see why some would think that, but I think it just goes to show that if you can say that Doctor Who's about change, that's the mantra we keep hearing. I do not believe that Doctor Who is about change, and I would argue, I'm willing to have the conversation with anybody who's going to tell me why this mantra that Stephen Moffat put out there, why we're supposed to believe this to the letter, and now people gets past, oh, Doctor Who's about change, Doctor Who's about change. And people have just repeated it that many times. They've stopped thinking about it. They just blurt it out. Do you hear that a lot?
Yeah, I do, and I agree with you. The difference is the series isn't about change. The truth is the series changes, but it's not about change.
If it changes on change and innovation,
yeah, absolutely,
and people being brave with it, but
that's right.
It's not about change for change's sake.
And there is a fundamental difference. If you look at the first 10 years of the series, from an unearthly child through to season 10 that we were talking about in a podcast recently with the Blu-ray coming out, the change there between an unearthly child and the Green Death, for example, at the end of season 10 is enormous. There literally is no comparison between the two styles. But it wasn't a deliberate thing. They weren't deliberately saying, now we've got to change it because Doctor Who is about change. No, they just did what they felt was the right thing at the time, and that just encapsulated change within its intrinsic being. And so this is the difficulty, and this is why I've got a real problem with the Jodie Whittaker era, because it's very much become about, well, no, we've got to change it because Doctor Who is about change, and so you have to embrace the change. Well, no, I'll embrace the change if it's the right thing for the show at the time and it works, fine, I've got no problem with it. But if you're changing things for change's sake, then there's absolutely nothing to be gained from it because you will lessen your product. It's as simple as that.
And as somebody who's worked in television, who's produced television, who's researched audience reaction, I would imagine,
yes,
this through experience.
Absolutely. You change your format at your peril because there is a reason why people like what they like. Again, you only need to look, for example, to The Last Jedi, the recent Star Wars film, for another example of how that completely changed fundamentally what people thought Star Wars was, because they just decided, Rian Johnson, in his wisdom for whatever reason, decided that was what he wanted to do. And that's great if he wants to do it, but you've got to accept that you are guaranteed 100% to leave some people in the dust when you do that, because there's a reason why they fell in love with a format to begin with. And that's why, yes, you can mess about with the format. Nobody's saying you can't, but you do so at your peril. It might all fall flat on its face. And sometimes you've just got to admit, okay, we messed up and it fell flat on its face. And we now we need to do that wonderful phrase that everybody rolls out. We need to go back to basics. That's what will be rolled out with Doctor Who within the next couple of years. We're going back to basics.
My favourite quote about this, before we move on, my favourite quote about this comes from my friend Glenn Jakeman from the Back to the 80s podcast. It's a great show, by the way, if you haven't heard it. The Back to the 80s podcast, he said that he believes that the day that Doctor Who is cancelled, production is cancelled on Doctor Who, there'll be a proportion of fans who say that's okay because Doctor Who is about change. And it's got a point.
Well, that's a fair point. If you're going to argue the Doctor's about change, well, then you have to embrace that one as well.
So just to go back to our friend over here, I had a second message from this person. It said 3 to 4 years ago, the minute the tickets went online, the ticket vendor server crashed immediately because everyone flooded to the site, and they had to switch to a lottery system the next day. The year after, with a new vendor, it took 2 days to sell out at about 3,800 tickets, and the year after that, it took about 10 days for the 2020 con. Tickets went on sale in early April and are still available now. as I said, I've been to all the galley conventions, and I can clearly remember the years when the buzz was off the charts to when it wasn't, when guests cancelled, etc. And there was no buzz at this year's con. I wasn't the only one who noticed, my friends did as well. Oh, and I just checked again, even 5 days after announcing Eccleston, the first New Who Doctor ever at the con. I didn't realise that. I thought David Tennant had been there. Tickets are still on sale. Unbelievable, or maybe not so unbelievable.
I do find it unbelievable. I have to say that even after announcing Christopher Eccleston, that doesn't appear to have sparked any buzz. So, well, it will have sparked buzz. There's no two ways about it. But the fact that it doesn't seem to have sparked the buzz that you might expect, you just can't help thinking, how much damage have they actually done to this franchise? I don't know. That's not for me to say. I'm not casting any judgment at all. That's for everybody else to
and just to clarify, this video isn't an attack on Gallifrey 1 or on Sean Lyon, who conceived Gallifrey 1 and Outpost Gallifrey, which is now Gallifrey Base. Sean is a Doctor Who fandom hero who's worked tirelessly for 30 years on this convention. It's got a great reputation, and it brings, it's the highlight of many, many people's years. I'd love to go. I would imagine, Simon, you'd love to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Sean Lyon is a brilliant person to have on board Doctor Who fandom, and yeah, I'm desperate to go. And so yeah, if anybody fancies giving us free tickets and we'll go and do a podcast from Gallifrey 1, I think we'd be up for that, wouldn't we, Dan?
Sean, you're going to have us sooner or later. You may as well make it now. But yeah, another 30 years of Gallifrey 1, obviously, we hope that does happen. And we hope that there are brighter times ahead for Doctor Who. Thank you to the person who sent in this message. They obviously felt not nervous sending it in, but it's nice to be trusted with somebody's honest thoughts and experiences. And they wanted us to know about this and to talk about this, and we are happy to do so here on Type Over 40 and on Type 40, as always, where there are no wrong opinions on Type 40. That's how we view it. And yeah, if you disagree with this, if your experience is completely different, get in touch. Join the conversation. We may get you on the show, get you on Type 40. We'd really, really like to hear from you. And yeah, for now, that's it. We'll wrap this up now, but we'll be back with more mail. We've had some more feedback for another video in the not too distant future, and you can find that, or wherever you found this. It could be on our YouTube channel, which is getting more and more subscribers as time goes along. So yeah, if you have enjoyed this video, you've got to like, subscribe if you can, and hit that little bell. There's a little bell icon somewhere. If you hit that, you'll find out when our videos have just dropped, because although we do share them in different places, we've got our Facebook page, we've got our Twitter feed, we've got our Instagram account, and our fantastic Facebook group, the Type 40 Facebook group, where everybody's welcome. Got all those places. We don't share in every single group and other pages we can find, mainly because people, we wouldn't like that if it was done to us. So we share sparingly, but you'll certainly find everything we do in the Type 40 Facebook group. And Simon in the Lunatics.
Indeed, yeah, you can find the Lunatics on Facebook anytime you like. Go and look at there. You'll get some lively debate on there. But in the meantime, thank you very much and take care out there.
Bye bye. Catch you soon.